Vernomatic Productions.
Are you ready?
Live from the Metal Mayhem Studios in Rochester, New York.
We are gold. We are gold.
And heard around the world by metalheads just like you. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Heavy metal music.
Your weekly dose of metal music, interviews, album reviews, news, and more. Want to be part of the show? Send us a message through our website, metalmayhemroc.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Search Metal Mayhem ROC.
It's getting nice and heavy.
Now, welcome our hosts, John the Vernomatic Verno, and direct from New Jersey, Metal Walt.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, staying healthy, enjoying Halloween week 2025. Well, tonight we got a good one. We're celebrating Overkill's debut album, Feel the Fire. We got Bobby Blitz Ellsworth, the lead singer of the band, and the producer of that album, Carl Canedy, drummer of the Rods, here tonight. We're going to take a look back at what it was like recording that album in Central New York. The two guys and all of us, actually, Metal Walt and myself, we talk about the early club scene, how Overkill got to the studio ready to work, behind-the-scenes studio stories. Bobby talks about how he started singing, how his singing style progressed. Carl talks about helping rat skates into the studio and helping him control and modify some of his partying behavior. That's a good one. Talk about the raw chemistry between band members and early songwriting evolution. And they talk about what it was like playing out on tour, some of those early shows with Anthrax and eventual tours with Slayer. And they talk about the Megaforce deal and working with Johnny Z and Marcia. It's a great, great walk down heavy metal memory lane, and we surely hope you enjoy it. That's coming up in just a second. As always, we invite you to get up to our headquarters, metalmayhemroc.com, our website. Sign up for the newsletter to get alerts on new podcast episodes, new interviews on our YouTube channel, reminders for our live radio show on Monday night on Metal Devastation Radio, and check out our merch page. Tons of cool stuff, hoodies, hats, phone cases, cocktail tumblers, and many, many other goodies. If you've missed recent episodes, last week we had Doro Pesh talking about the new album, Warriors of the Sea. 2 weeks before that, Mariah Wynn of Envy of None. And at the beginning of the month, we had interviews with Steve Morris of Deep Purple, Keith Roth of Sirius Satellite Radio, remembering Eddie Van Halen on the 5-year anniversary of his death, and tons of other cool interviews. So again, get up to metalmayhemroc.com. And one last favor, if you can, leave us a review, subscribe to the pod wherever you're listening to it, and that way other metalheads can find out about the show. All right, well, let's fire this one up. Bobby Blitz, Carl Canedy, talking Feel the Fire 40 years later. For my co-host, Metal Walt, I'm the Vernomatic, and we are Metal Mayhem ROC. Well, here it is, 2025, and we got two of our buddies, Bobby Blitz from Overkill, Carl Canedy from the Rods, and these two guys got together in Ithaca, New York, 40-plus years ago to record Feel the Fire, Overkill's first one. Guys, welcome to the show, and happy birthday to Feel the Fire. How's everyone doing today?
Doing great.
I'll tell you something. It's I in the words of Lemmy, it's good to be here, but at my age, it's good to be anywhere.
I know that only too well.
Can you believe it's 40 years? And how much of this do you remember? What can you share? We got a whole list of questions. Share some of your early insights on the album.
Well, obviously it was a long time ago, but I have some memories of it. The one thing I remember is that Overkill showed up fully formed. Those guys were ready to go. I remember the pre-production was minimal because they had their shit together. And Bobby showed up. Bobby was a star. He walked in the room. His presence is commanding as it is now, but it was very clear that he was a star.
I can accept that.
Bobby, take us back to that scene. Even before Carl came into the fold here, take us back to early days, the club days, Jersey, New York, cutting your teeth. How did this album come together? How were the songs formed?
Well, as Carl just mentioned, I mean, we came formed, we came ready to play, and that that happened in the stages in Staten Island, New York, and in Jersey, and at Lemoore in Brooklyn, and, you know, sneaking into a gig here and there, getting something. I remember there's an old story about how we did our own promotion. I mean, we would send out for press kits of other bands and occasionally get one, and we would use it as a template. You know, we'd make like the 8x10, we'd have the demo tape, we'd write a bio. And we knew that if we got into Lemoore, that it would be a launching pad for us, because that's where everybody had played in Brooklyn. And eventually one opened in Queens, so that was Lemoore East. And it was my turn to drop one of the press kits off, you know. And the guys who were the Parente brothers, who eventually managed us afterwards. And it was George was walking by me, and there he was. It was my turn. I went up, and I gave him the press kit. I said, Mr. Parente and Bobby from Overkill, here's the press kit. He goes, kid, you're a nice fucking kid. You're not a kid. I got 40 of your fucking press kits on my desk, but your band sucks. And it never stopped us from continuing moving forward. And eventually we were playing his club when somebody canceled. And a year after that, he was managing us. So I think somewhere in that tenacity is what Carl mentioned about us being ready when we showed up for Field of Fire.
How'd you get connected with Johnny and Marcia at Megaforce?
We opened for Anvil on Halloween '84, and they had brought down a bunch of the people. Our connection with them prior was their brick and mortar in Clark, New Jersey, Rock and Roll Heaven. They were selling our demo first, and then there was a 4-song EP called Overkill, kind of self-produced and in a local, I forget the dude's last name, Dave something. He was a local dude down in, I think, Dover, New Jersey. And we just kept selling them because I suppose of that self-promotion thing. I mean, we were pre-internet, but we were for sure handshakers and, you know, put stickers somewhere and, you know, flyers under your windshield wiper, and people knew who the band was. So they went down to see Anvil as they were friends of theirs. And I think within maybe 3 or 4 days later, they offered us a deal. So that was Halloween of '84.
Was this like you kind of saying, all right, you know, we got this, you know, we got somebody behind us, we got a label. Like, when did Carl come in, and how much of this stuff was already put together, or did that still have to come?
We were playing these songs pretty much how they are recorded. I mean, obviously, I'm sure we had cut some choruses or extended some choruses. There wasn't like major rewrites, is what I'm saying. So we were, you know, what our set was pretty much this and some cover songs. I think we had a couple of other songs that didn't make the cut to this, or they had shown up on compilation records, like the Metal Massacre record had a song called Death Rider, which didn't make it to the Field of Fire release because it was already released. But they were pretty much the same. I think there was some, you know, through pre-production, we went through some things. You know, Carl, being a drummer, worked with Rat Skates very closely. And, you know, I suppose there was still some mentoring to be done for us to, you know, for him to get the best performance out of 4 dudes who just felt like they had, you know, were given licenses to be assholes. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we just got a record deal. Let's just fucking run with it. You know, let's really have a good time with it. So I suppose he just had the energy was there. He just had to kind of like put the rope around us and bring us back, and also work with Rat.
Carl, at the beginning, this was your start of your producing career, if you will.
Very early on. Mm-hmm.
What were you looking to do with the band? Did you help them tweak it? Did you change anything? Or were you learning along with the band?
You know, as I recall, the songs were great. So whatever we did was minimal. The biggest thing was, my concern was capturing that energy, because that was the key. Capture the energy. You know, equipment back then wasn't the best. You know, the studio was great, but it isn't what it, you know, it wasn't what it is now. And so the technology was tight and, you know, limited, and the time was limited. But I just don't recall having a lot. Like, I remember thinking, you know what? Like, I could insinuate myself into the music, but I saw no point in it. The goal was capture the music. Now, I know Rat was kind of like Bobby just said, he kind of, you know, they were young guys and they were extremely passionate. And there were some flare-ups in the studio, you know, because of that passion, which is a great thing, because of that energy and that passion. But there's some moments, but Rat was out. I remember the first night we were ready to start tracking. He came in the next day and he had been out late. And when you're playing drums, We just had this conversation yesterday about drumming. Everyone's like, "You're a really great drummer. Why do you practice all the time?" Because as a drummer, the muscle memory isn't there. You don't have the stamina if you don't practice. You're not going anywhere. When Rat came in and his legs were shot, he had just stayed up all night. Like, if you don't have that, if your body isn't in good shape, so he's trying to play thrash drums, fast double bass. And in the studio, you're under a microscope. So everything has to be very precise. We weren't triggering back then. We didn't have that capability. So when you're hearing a double bass part, those bass drums have to be even. And when your legs, your muscles are starting to spasm because you're tired, and same thing that happens to anybody. When you're exhausted, you're not at your best. So we kind of had to go through that, and I kind of had to read him the riot act. But other than that, the big goal was to capture that energy. And that was just, I would love to say that I came in and I rearranged and it contributed to these songs, but that would be a lie.
Carl and Bobby, what brought you to Pyramid Sound Studios? What was the draw?
Well, I don't know if Bobby, did you know about Pyramid Sound? We did the Anthrax albums there. Did you know about it before you came?
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously I had my finger on the pulse of the scene, so I knew it existed. And once we were signed to Megaforce, it was pretty obvious where we were going. It wasn't like a matter of us picking things. We were, again, we were brand new to this whole thing, and I think probably some of the attribute that we had was that energy Carl spoke of. Listen. If you got a guy playing double bass and you're doing it live and you're doing it 3 nights a week for a 3-year period to get to kind of in some degree get ready for this moment, and then you're listening to it in a studio, it's a whole different thing. It sounds great in a club. It doesn't really sound great when you got the cans on or you're listening to a playback, because you can hear those little differences or the nuances falling off. But we knew we were going to be at Pyramid. We knew it was a good studio. We knew there was good personnel out there. I mean, Alex was great. This was like kind of going to where, the birth of this type of music, especially with regard to the East Coast, was being heralded, was this studio and that personnel. So, I mean, we were totally happy about doing it.
Yeah. And that was a case of, and by the way, in Rat's defense, he came in the next day and he kicked ass on the rest of the album. There was no issue. They just needed that little, got to settle down and focus on the album and a little less on the partying. But that was Johnny. I had brought Anthrax. Johnny had said, come up. And there was a studio in Elmira, and it just wasn't up to snuff. And Kerry Wittig said, what about Pyramid? And I'd recorded at Pyramid a lot. So we wound up going there, and that turned into John's studio. John and John Perry-Ellis had a deal, and they did business together and brought in a lot of Johnny's projects. So it was great. But Alex, as Bobby mentioned, Alex is still one of my close friends, and I just love him to death. And he's a great engineer, great producer. And so he was great to be on the team as well. So it was a good fit.
So Bobby, the band comes up to Ithaca. Where'd you guys live? How long did it take to record this album? Do you have some big frat house you were living in? Were you in a car? What was the living situation like?
Johnny actually had an apartment. It was kind of like a garden apartment, maybe a basement type apartment. A few buildings next to each other and 4 apartments in each building, 4 or 6. And we had the downstairs to the right. It was 2 bedrooms, and some people slept in the living room and bunked up in the back rooms. And it was a pretty comfortable setup. It wasn't the Holiday Inn, but it was at least a red roof, and it was amazing for us first time.
How long were you in town recording the album? Did it take 2 weeks? A month?
Yeah, just long enough to not get thrown out by like one day. It was, This is how the recording ended. I mean, to the point where I think I had 2 black eyes and a broken tooth by the time we had left. It was approximately a month between the recording and the mix, as I remember.
Well, because Bob, this is probably, like you said, this is the first time all 4 of you were maybe out of your home elements, out of the New York, New Jersey elements, right? Everybody's going to get on each other's nerve at some point, and then you add all the booze in, right? Fist could happen.
Got pretty intense at some times, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of good fun. There was there was a place up there, and Carl was there with us a couple of times. They had live music, and we would hit this place afterwards. It was called Captain Joe's, and it was just this
was a cool
amazing,
club.
a really cool club, and it was a little extra. It was right down in the marina of on the lake in Ithaca, and it was just, I guess, Cayuga, that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a great place to go, and we met a lot of people down there, some friends, some not. But it was a really good experience, a really good 30 days, 28 days, whatever it was.
I don't know if I should tell this story, but it was something that stuck with me all these years. And every time I personally think of it, I think, oh yeah, I remember Bobby gave me a name for this. But Bobby came in, and I believe there was some kind of an encounter with a young lady. And he came in and he was talking about Ticklehead, which we all fell on the floor when he was describing it.
And you're talking about me? You talked about the other Bob.
Yeah, no, you came in and you were talking about the Ticklehead, and it was just hysterical.
It was an expression used back in the 80s when you're making your first record. That's all it was.
Okay. Enough said.
Hey, Bobby, getting into the album tracks, like, for the, let's say, mainstream audience, songs like Overkill, Rotten to the Core, and Hammerhead, they're the most well-known songs. And, here they are, 40 years later, and they're still staples. You guys still play them, I mean, did you have any sense then, or looking back, that these are kind of like set list anchor songs?
No, you have to think we're young men. We have no experience in this. This is, we didn't have production experience, for instance, so we need somebody to guide us through all of this. Do we have ideas? Of course we have ideas, but they're all over the map, those ideas. There's no clear path to what we want to accomplish, except we want to be the heaviest band. That's what we want to be. We thought they were good songs, of course, but I think the key to any success for this record was that we lived in the moment. We didn't live saying that down the road, these are going to be staples, in the set list. The idea was that the best song was the one you were doing at that particular time. Now, afterwards, when you started listening to the record and going out the road, you started looking at things from a different perspective. You started looking at it now from the live perspective, not necessarily the creative perspective in the studio. And we knew then, by 87 or 88, we knew that Rotten to the Core would be in there, or the song Overkill, Hammerhead, we still do occasionally, like you said. So, it's good to see that they've stood the test of time. But I think that that's more of a testimony to the scene itself, because this kind of shit is really hard to throw away for people that grew up on it, and it's not just Overkill. It's that scene that we're talking about, whether it be a Metallica song, off a Kill 'Em All, or early Anthrax song off a Fistful, or, an Exodus, blah, blah, blah. Name the fucking band. But the point is that this is kind of the soundtrack of their youth, or part of that soundtrack. And the same with us, because this is not about being rock stars. I mean, you can't be a rock star and do this shit. You got to be a fan of this stuff first and foremost. Is always what I thought.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, I staged though at Motorhead before I recorded my first song, and there's a reason for that, because I loved fucking Motorhead, and it just got everything going. So I think that's where the value and longevity come from.
Bob, early in my broadcast career, I was doing a heavy metal show on a Friday night, and one of the most requested songs was Rotten to the Core. And sometimes we'd play it twice, but right from the beginning, the Overkill imagery was there. And you guys had an advantage because you're from New York. At that time, the West Coast was getting all the gloss. Metallica, Exodus, Slayer. Those were like the big guys over there. So was it set out from the beginning to create the imagery of Overkill? Because we've talked about this in other interviews, the green and, the whole imagery of the band. Right from the start, let's expand a little bit on what kind of image message you wanted to send across to the metal world.
I mean, this was Rat Skates and Dee Dee Verney. I mean, they were just absolute, they were almost nerds into how other people presented themselves, whether it be an Iron Maiden, whether it be a Motorhead or a Judas Priest or something of that era. we picked the green, for instance, because everybody else picked red. So that when you could look out there, sure you'd see a lot of red, but it wouldn't be totally distinguishable to you in a crowd that was facing you. But the green would be, because there was only one band at that particular time using that green. The mascot. The mascot was originally drawn by Didi Verney. Kind of looked like Popeye with wings. I think it was done on a cocktail napkin, after a binge night or something. And up in Ithaca, we had talked with Alex, and I think even Carl were involved in this, and we said we need an artist. And that bat that you see today that we call Charlie, it was originally done in Ithaca, New York by an artist up there from the original Didi Verney rendition. But the idea was to be presented, was to put a show on, and was to be recognizable amongst all the other faces in the crowd. Therefore, the green, listen, the big boys have Eddie, we should have our own Eddie. That kind of a thing. Let's not think small. Let's make them our competition. So mentally, I think that gives you the opportunity to think you're competing with them. And then always, of course, try for better results.
Sure.
And the cover, you guys had a great idea for the cover. I remember you said, Alex, we want this and we want like flare. And you had a friend who was a photographer. And that flare, that cover is like today you wouldn't even consider some kind of fire that size. But you guys, you had a huge bonfire and you guys had that photo taken in front of that bonfire, and it's a great cover. To this day, to me, that's a killer, one of the best covers.
Were you there on the first night?
I was.
Because we did it twice, and they stacked all this hay up. They covered it in gasoline. And in front of the hay is plastic, and they hit that with water. So that's where the water and the shine looks from. We were standing too close to the fire. And the only pictures the guy got was us running out of the fire. And I said, we had to change it to run away. So we're just up. So the second night, when you look at the pictures of us, our arms look like we're ready to draw 6 guns because they're wrapped in duct tape so it wouldn't burn the hair off that.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's great.
Why 2 photo sessions?
Well, it just didn't work the first night. We looked the second night. You can't start the fire and then put it out. You got one shot.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so he's shooting everything, and everybody's moving and uncomfortable, and eventually people are moving out of the frame and getting away from that heat. We were that close to the heat. This one is further away. The one that you have up on the screen. Yeah, there's no redos in analog. No redos.
Yeah, dedicated artists, hay bales and gasoline. That's a conflagration.
That's fucking metal.
Hey, Bob, you talk about the mascot. The mascot has been a signature for all your album covers, but I don't believe it's on this album, correct? Or is it? We just can't see it.
It's on the inside sleeve. It's the when you take the sleeve out, it has the lyrics printed on a picture of the band if you flip in, and overlaid is the lyrics over the back.
Let's talk about the touring. So the album comes out. How long? Well, let's back up a little bit. So you complete the album. How long until it came out, and how was the immediate response to the album?
Immediacy was a little bit different back then. You can go around the world, in a couple of clicks today. So it came to, over time. I don't think we saw reviews for a while. Obviously, we were really excited to see them. We knew that it had, this thing had legs in the New York, New Jersey, tri-state area. We knew it had legs. We were already doing shows there, and we were doing, relatively big shows for a band, of our stature. And, we got out on the road with Anthrax. I think that was their first tour with Joey. We went to Europe with them. So it was Anthrax, Overkill, not Liege Lord. Oh, God. Band from California. John Cyrus, Juan. It'll come to me. But it was a Metal Hammer Road show. We did a month over in Europe. We did Slayer over here a few months after that. We actually did Slayer right before we started doing Taking Over, the second record. We did a bunch of headline stuff. We had SOD out with us. They opened. I mean, that was a great little package. It wasn't a lot of shows. I think it was probably half a dozen shows, but it was just amazing. All tri-state area shows. And some of the old regulars were there. The Carnivore guys would, they hooked up for a few shows here and there. And pretty soon there was Nuclear Assault was with us. So it was good touring. I mean, we did what we could, under the circumstances, and as and those opening for Slayer and for Anthrax was a really great way to kind of sink our teeth into some territories that we wouldn't have been able to get on our own.
That Slayer tour was legendary. That Taking Over Raining Blood tour, that was, we saw it up here in Rochester, and they, at the Penny Arcade, and they oversold that show by at least 300 or 400. There was kids on top of kids, and that was good stuff. That was Overkill's always delivered.
Looking back at your singing style back then, now, what do you think of it when you look back now? Is it like, wow, this is killer still, or is it like, ooh boy, that's a little uncomfortable now?
I not obviously, but I listened to a couple of cuts so that I could not familiarize myself with them, but to just try to get the vibe of what I was feeling during these recording sessions. And I think I sang a little differently here. I don't think I necessarily knew how to sing that well during this, but I think my energy and tenacity kind of pushed it over the top. But found that touring started tearing my voice up, and very soon after that was at the bequest of Johnny Z and the management. I started taking lessons from a guy named Don Lawrence down in the city, who's done some great work with lots and lots of people. The guy's he's a great singing teacher, and he's given me the longevity, even though my voice has changed some over the years. I mean, I'm still doing it in 440, which is, a standard tuning. It's not dropped. The only time I ever do, it's the only time I do something dropped is when it was written dropped, so I do everything in the key it's been written in. And I attribute that to the fact that somebody had the wherewithal to tell me, you're going to blow this up, kid. You're just going to blow it up and it's going to be a mess all over the street. You're not going to be able to do anything with it. Like many guys who've walked before you and did not take lessons. So to this day, I kind of keep those principles of the lessons with me, and probably have developed, as people tell me, though I don't hear it, more of an Udo-esque approach to things. But it's still my voice, and it's still, I don't have problems with it. It's I treat it like a muscle, and I respect it, and it's so that's that.
Fellas, you've talked about Rat Skates. What about Dee Dee Verney and Bobby Gustafson? What was their involvement? What was the chemistry with those guys in their early days?
Well, their chemistry, I think, was really great on this record. I mean, there's no doubt that there was songs written before Bobby came in that ended up on this record. But I think that, he really was the guy who helped throw this over the top because he was an idea dude. I think that Dee Dee picked up on those ideas. I think that Bobby could bring an idea in, and Dee Dee could really, he could jive with that idea because they were both holding axes, 1/6 and 1/4, obviously, but still, I think that this for sure was a group effort at this time. And Bobby was the youngest dude in the band, when he came in, and he had, riffs like Hammerhead, he had riffs like Overkill, some really standout stuff on this. So I think that their interaction together was something that was, really important for making this making the musicality of this come together. I don't think I had a lot to do with that. I think I was, you got to bake the cake before you put the icing on it. And I was more the icing than the cake.
It's my take on those two. Dee Dee was the anchor. Dee Dee had the heavy freaking grind and just solid and held it all together. And then Gustafson was flying. Gustafson was amazing, blazing lead guitarist, unbelievable. So, but Dee Dee and Bobby were really just worked so well together, even though they were totally different, because Dee Dee was really solid and not a flashy bass player. And obviously Gustafson was the riff guy.
Guys, what are you thinking when you would not so much in what you're looking back in retrospect about the album, but maybe when you got through the recording and the promotion and the touring and big tours, you're all over Europe, you're all over the States. How did it pave the way for the next album? Let's say what you're going to do and how you're going to approach that. What were the lessons learned from this period?
Well, obviously the singing lesson thing. The writing, we had less time to do for this, but some of those songs were, embryonic that showed up on the second record, even at the time Feel the Fire was recorded, because we weren't one of those bands that would, get together and rehearse for a gig. We just rehearsed every night. I mean, we just didn't do it the weekends. We did it 5 nights a week like a job. We drank beer afterwards. We woke up in the morning at a rehearsal studio. There was a shower there, thank God, and we went to work, so we were always fucking prepared. I ran a loading dock out of the back of the Museum of Modern Art. Back then, it was actually the museum towers that was built above it. But it was, what a job, and the guy, I was getting like union wage at the time and going out to Jersey and doing, rehearsals, and, my pockets were full of fucking money, not because of anything, except I was working this like porter's job in New York City, and it was like, and everybody else had these jobs, so we could put all this fucking money into the band. So we started rolling our own cash into it. So it was I think we understood that it was a time to invest in ourselves. This was going to be more. And Johnny Z had just signed something with Atlantic for distribution, so we knew it was going to be a big role, and we were going along with the whole thing. We were being taken into that distribution vacuum that Atlantic was going to do. So worldwide, we were going to be a recognized something. Boom, videos start. Boom, this starts. Boom, that starts. You got to start paying attention, And I think I think that the preparation we had done even before we had met Carl readied us for the second record. It was like, okay, keep those lessons up. The drummer's got to play. We got to rehearse every night regardless. We can party after. We can still have our time, but let's get the job done.
Bob, is there anything you do different?
No, I believe that everything is necessary to, every step is necessary to the moment, whether they're, you wish it was different or something, you go, oh, it's still, because what we followed up that mistake with was something great. You can't, I don't think you can really succeed at a high level if everything you do is great. You got to make mistakes to be able to adjust things. And that's not just music. That's with everything. I mean, that's a pitcher, an athlete, a writer, a painter, an accountant, I mean, whatever you're doing,
Sure.
A podcast host.
Well, we have meetings all the time.
right.
We'll kill 2 hours talking about stuff, and it's just, we compare ourselves to ourselves, just like the band. You're comparing yourself to yourself, and that follow-up taking over, you learned a lot. Any plans for some kind of 40th year box set? Any plans to celebrate?
Yeah, I think, we've done, we've done 20 records. I mean, it's like, it's all, I'm really happy about the fact that we're still, relevant in the current day. It's not like, the shit just goes away. We can get tours. I just booked, through my Euro agent, Didi and I booked most of the summer festivals. So we're going to be gone through that because he can do those weekends regardless of a rehab for his shoulder. So that's great news. And I guess it was probably 10 years ago we had done a live in Overhausen, we called it, and it was in Germany. We celebrated Feel the Fire along with the record Horoscope. One was 30 years, one was 25 years, something like that. So it was that was it.
Well, let's talk about the new one. When can we hear some new stuff?
Yeah, we're demoed out. Jeremy Kling's playing drums for us now. Jason Bittner moved on to other things. I mean, obviously, you're kind of like
Yeah.
that area together too, and besides your fingers on the pulse of this whole thing. So we're just moving along. We're going to start recording, before the first of the year. We'll get some stuff done. I'm sure just the drum tracks. We're working on those as of right now. I'm just filling in the blanks with what the other dudes have done, and it's kind of business as usual at this point. So no big news to report as of this moment, but tomorrow you never know.
What about you, Carl? The Rods have been very active lately. You got new stuff out there. We'll get us up to speed on the Rods. Rattle the Cage was a great album. Great album, man. We still play it up on the live radio show.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, the new album is out. We're getting great reviews. So hopefully we'll be booking some shows and we'll see what's going on. But we're working on another album and, I'm glad we're on a creative roll. So, who knows? I mean, our future, as I saw one boxing promoter talk about a fighter that his future's behind him. That's kind of where we are. We're kind of the end of the career stage for us, but we're still kicking ass. So as long as we can crank out music that we're proud of and perform at a high level, then we're there.
Well, fellas, you know what? Best of luck. Thank you for 40 plus years, Bobby. Thank you for joining us today. Carl, thank you for, we were risking. We're like, what if they don't get along? What if there's some beef we don't know about? Because Bob, we were going to surprise you and bring Carl in, but you guys are great fellas and we appreciate it.
It's a great surprise. I mean, how do you know me? How many beefs do I have? How many beefs?
Probably not many. So
not many.
All right. Well, again, get out there, check out Feel the Fire, check out the Rods, and search their names on social media and follow them. Bob and Carl, thanks again, man. We'll see you guys on the road.
Thank you, guys. Good seeing you, Bobby.
All right. Good seeing you, Carl. Later, man. Thank you, voice.
All right. Well, there you have it. Right from the guys that made the album, Carl Canedy of the Rods and Bobby Blitz from Overkill. If you like what we're doing here, as always, subscribe to the pod, leave a review, send us some emails, and let us know how we're doing. For Metal Walt, Carl Canedy, Bobby Blitz, I'm the Vernomatic, and we are Metal Mayhem ROC.
Metal for life.
Thank you for listening to Metal Mayhem ROC. Check out our website at metalmayhemroc.com for information on podcasts, archives, links to all our live radio shows, and all sorts of info. Please like, follow, and share with everyone, even your non-metal friends. And always remember to keep it heavy.